This time I'm showing you my position in the society and how the people react to my knowledge. It would be easier to say what I achieved with this knowledge than what I haven't. Nothing, literally nothing. I was 31 years old when finally, after long suffer in these societies, when finally I could leave the dark Eastern Europe. In the next decade, in my 30s, I've been traveling all over the world, over 110 countries. I've worked in over 20 countries. This is how I earned my money to travel. And also, I've been volunteering in over 20 countries. On the top of that, I was searching job in over 10 countries. Personally, I traveled there. So the total number of the countries where I had some activities is over 50 countries. During this journey, I learned 3 different languages, and I'm not saying I speak them on high level. After all this knowledge I earned, after all these countries I visited, very often happens the next scene. I have lived in shared houses in several countries. I had 100 housemates in different Western countries too. And look, the conversation very often goes like this. Music festivals? I have no idea. That's not really my scene. Or, you know, mate, where can I buy some marijuana? Countries where it is illegal, actually. Or, you know, mate, where can I buy beers? Where is a good bar? You know, these are not my scenes either. Girls in the other side of the room start to talk about, what do you think about Kim Kardashian divorced? And it's like, I don't even know who is Kim Kardashian. And after these very common conversations, not the first time happened, my housemate or roommate, 20, 30 or sometimes even 40 years old, man, woman, or even groups in the house, saying that I hear that in the kitchen, for example, or in the other room, they talking about that. This guy is a very boring person. Yes, I am. This is my nature. I always say something like this. Or the much offensive or much rude when I hear they speaking in the kitchen. This guy is a loser. He don't know nothing about this world. And what can I say? Oh, and the most offensive part, when they are drunk or they just simply this rude and disrespectful, when someone face to face started telling me, look at your age, you are already 30, you are already 40, and you have nothing. Usually the younger generation telling me this, or mostly women in my age. You don't have a house, you don't have a car, you don't have nothing, so you are a loser. Oh, please, don't hurt me. Look, I do not describe myself as a typical victim, you know what I mean? Because I am not. I can fight, I can stand up. Sometimes I can argue very hardly and very loudly. The best thing if you never will see this in my videos. But I don't like to behave like this, you understand? And in most of times, I try to avoid any type of confrontation, but there is a line, there is a limit, there is a breaking point when I say that, okay, no more words. And the reason I'm telling you this phenomenon, how many times in different languages people calling me a loser, calling me a boring person, or much worse, not because of my personal emotions, you know, no, because this is a typical conversation in my life from my colleagues or from my housemates. Not just once, not just 10 times, hundreds of times happened this type of conversation. And still happening today. So this is the respect what usually I earn from the society, because I was sitting in the library 1.5 decades. Let's dive into this. As you can see, between the ages 15 and 30, I gained an extraordinary knowledge and intelligence. I became the person I partly wanted to be. Do you remember how I started this video? I wanted to be one of them, those old gentlemen from my childhood, who got respect, who had charisma. You know what I mean? Look at those old photos from the 1920s or 1930s or even from the 1950s. You remember them? People in elegant clothes, standing with dignity. Men and women. And always in the middle of the photo there was the head of the family, and close to him the closest family members or the most respected persons in the family. I wanted to be one of them. Maybe not head of the family, but one of the uncle or one of the cousin, who always has countless stories about books and countless stories from all over the world. And actually I became one of these persons. But there are no more family to talk with. There are no more community to share this knowledge and experience. I had been preparing for something for 20 years. And that word is no longer exist. I wasn't even 25 years old, and I lived like a lonely 80 years old man who has no family and no friends. And I know it's not just happened with me, it's happening all over in the Western societies. And I just noticed that there are no more kids in my family. And I just noticed that there are no more people to talk to. Look at my life in the UK. I rent a private room in a house. We don't know our neighbors, we don't know our other neighbors. Even if I say hi, I know that they will not say hi to me if I wouldn't say hi to them. In several apartments happened this. When I just started a conversation and they say, sorry, no English. Even if they do, they don't want. And the same happened in Miami, when I just tried to talk to my neighbors in Spanish. They're not saying hi. They don't want to know you. The intelligence and knowledge of the society is not progressing. We are regressing. And in this new 21st century world, to reading books is seriously for the losers. If you remember, I mentioned that 3 main things motivated me to reading books, along with several other reasons, for example, the thirst of knowledge. Here is the list again. I want to go over this again. If you think I became a respected person in my community, or if you think I found better job or better people around me, or I found an intelligent woman, my life partner, you are wrong. None of this happened. So, number 1, I wanted to be a wise and valuable person. And with this, I wanted to give to the community a valuable person. As I mentioned before, the society fell apart around me. Families, communities. And what about the kids? Look, I am not an ego-centered and narcissistic person, because there are enough in our society, so we don't need one more. But our society is full of them. The majority wants to be trash celeb, YouTube star, influencer. Most of people don't even want to work. Countless men wants to be gangsters. So please, I am not one of them. But tell me, what is inspiring today for the young generation, if not the knowledge? Knowledge of books, knowledge of sports, or anything. A person who have read 1,000 books and visited over 100 countries. What is this if not an inspirational? And yet, it isn't. I'm going to tell you why. Listen, the following scenes is not a complaint for me. However, it's a sad fact. But don't take as a complaint. In my 20s, back in my old country, never happened any young, for example, in my age or younger, in, let's say, in their teenager age, 15, 16 years old. Never happened someone said that, Richard, you are my inspiration. Or, Richard, I started to read books because of you. This never happened in my 20s. And remember, I was 31 when I left my country. And the second half of my 20s was a completely lonely life. You understand what I mean? I'm not complaining, so try not to focus on my pain. Because for me, obviously, it's a painful thing. I'm just telling you, as a fact, the world has changed. As I mentioned, girls want to be trash celebs, or media influencers, or models. Boys want to be gangsters. And here is the more important thing than my emotions. Our society is full of children or adults with serious mental health issues. And believe me, never happened in my community someone saying that, for example, Richard, I have a nephew, I have a niece, as I said, in their teenager ages, for example, when I was 25 or 30. And you know, Richard, it would be good if you could talk to them, giving them some self-respect, or giving them some example, or you could advise them to reading some positive books, or something like this. Seriously, this never happened in my life. You know why? Because the people interested on one thing, and that's the money. If I were a millionaire, yeah, of course, I would be the inspiration. And when finally I left the dark Eastern Europe, when I was 31 years old, I was sure about that. Everything will change when I will go to another country, to UK, United States, or Australia, or to some of these countries. And I was so wrong, because everything is just continued. Second point on the list. If you remember, I wanted to read a lot of books, and with this knowledge and with this experience, I wanted to find more intelligent and educated people and make friendship with them. And through this, finding better job, finding better positions in my life. Because I saw that, because I recognized very early that in this working class society, I will be alcoholic or drug user, or I will be a completely lonely person. And I will just work in a minimum wage, physical works, laborer works, and I never will have nothing. So the only one way to get out of this lifestyle, if I find more intelligent, more educated people, and maybe with their help, I can find a better job. And guess what happened? I want to show you some scenes which really demonstrates how was my life back then. So this scene happened very often. You know how the people called me back then? The weirdo guy, the strange guy, and more offensively, the psycho. Dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times I've heard this. So this scene happened in the library. I was just sitting there, and the girl in my age was sitting nearby. We just started to have a conversation. And we just have a nice 20 minutes conversation. She left, and everything was fine. A few weeks later, this girl came back with a group of university students, 5 or 6 girls. And while I was just searching some books in the rows, I heard them, and actually I saw them. They were talking about me. And this girl just said, this is the guy I was talking about. This is the weirdo guy. He all day sitting here and just reading books. He actually living in the library. And then another girl from the group just responded, oh my God, this is the 21st century. Are the people still reading books in this century? And they laughed, you know what, it was the best joke of the year or something. And I laughed too, not because of the joke, or not because I mocked myself, no. I laughed on this phenomenon, how funny, when the alpha female, or the top dog of the group, saying something which is not even funny, everybody find it funny and laughing on it. And this is so typical. And please, I'm not telling you this story just because someone, somewhere in the dark Eastern Europe, 20 years ago, said something what I did not like. No, I'm telling you this story because these stories still happening today in my life. Not long ago happened same conversation. Okay, very similar story. I was already 30 years old and this happened in a shared apartment. So we lived in shared rooms, so we had a lot of times to spend together even if we did not like it. And this conversation happened between a group, boys and girls, 5 or 6 of them, some of them 25 years old, some of them is in my age, 30 years old. And we were just talking about the future plans, who wants family, who wants relationship, who wants to get married, and so on and so on. And I just mentioned them on a very innocent way. Once I want to have family, I want to have children, and everything went fine. So when I just left this group and I went to the bathroom, I just heard this group continued the topic. And they were completely shocked. I repeat, some of them were my age, boys and girls, or men and women. And I just heard this. This guy is a loser. Who wants family nowadays? This guy is out of his mind. And they're laughing again, You see, a completely different group, completely different age, and in a completely different city. You understand? I am the weirdo. I am the stranger. I am the loser. At this point, I want to give you a life lesson. Especially if you are in your 20s, you have to prepare yourself for it. But even if you are in your 40s, you have to accept this fact. When you do something different, or you're just going on a different path, okay, the crowd is going on this way, and you're going to the opposite way. They will not accept you. They will not respect you. They will not adore you. They will mock you. They will label you. They will discriminate you. But the majority never will respect you. Especially if you earn more knowledge or if you earn more skills. Most of people who are just lazy, they will not respect you. If you do not go along with the crowd, they will ostracize you. You will be like an outcast. If you are better than them at something, no matter what it is, sports, art, playing an instrument, or any hobby, they will get jealous and realize that they are lazy and useless. Come on, look at the society today. Youth in my age, the millennials, or younger than me, and 7 or 8 out of 10 saying that their hobby is the Facebook and the Netflix, which means they do not have real hobbies, they do not have real talents, and that's the point. They do not need people who has any knowledge in anything. And this is why these influencers who has no knowledge or talent or skills in anything are the most successful and the most famous. At this moment also I want to introduce you this type of apartments because a lot of you probably never even heard of it. Or if you live with your parents, or if you can afford to rent your own house, or you get a house from your parents, you never even lived in this phenomenon. I lived in this type of apartments all over the world in over 20 or 30 countries. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. These crowded apartments usually filled with university students in their 20s or working class people, which can be any age of 25, 30, 40, even sometimes 50 or 60 years old. Most of times migrants, but not necessarily. Sometimes 10 or 20 or even more people living in one house because this is what we can afford. Sometimes we're sleeping on mattresses, sometimes in bunk beds. It's a sort of hostel, but officially these are not hostels. It's unimaginable, filthy, and dirty. You can't imagine how. And the other thing I am shocked by is the fact how many people are alcoholics and massive drug users. No, I'm not talking about that. Someone finishing the job, going home, opening one can of beer, or just rolling one joint and smoking. No, I'm talking about massive marijuana smokers or hard drug users or alcoholics who drinking 10 cans of beer, for example, in one day, or rolling every half an hour a joint afternoon. So finishing the day with 6 or 7 of them just in the apartment, and who knows how many they smoked during their job or in the university. Let's say just a number, if we live 20 people in one house, 17 or 18 living this lifestyle. I repeat, not only 20 years old students, even 30, 40 years old working class migrants. And besides the dirt and disgusting houses, I did not even mention the fact how many times they changing their sex partner, maybe between their roommates, or they bring in outsiders, doesn't matter. And if they are drunk enough, or they used hard drugs, sometimes they don't even care if other people are in the room. And please, it's not just one time or 2 times happened in my life. No, it happened in Miami, it happened in New York, it happened in Texas, it happened in London, it happened in Australia, it happened in several different cities in my home country in East Europe. I am shocked how many of us, I'm talking about the millennials, and actually not just my generation, how we just hang in the air and living this wild lifestyle. And listen, the majority of these people are Westerners. Okay, I am shocked how the West simply can't exist anymore without drugs. And the reason I'm telling you this, because what do I expect? These people will appreciate my knowledge, my talents, my skills, or my intelligence? No way. And if you are intelligent and aware person, the majority of these people never will appreciate your personality, never will give you any respect. Because the only one thing they see, the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, and how to make money, how to earn anything from other people. And look how these apartments are crazy. When finally my contract is ending and I can move to another city, another district, or even to another country with another language, everything is continuing all over again. Folks, in these apartments are the place where I knew the most of people. In these apartments all over the world, 100 times I've heard this sentence: books for the losers. They telling to each other, or they telling me, doesn't matter. Listen, I can just repeat it. If I see the things from their perspectives, truly, the books for the losers. And in the only one thing they can find the catch on me is that. This also sentence what I heard, not just dozens of times, I think hundreds of times. Richard, what is it worth it to read that lot of books? You don't have a house, you don't have a car, you don't have a high educated job. So what is it for? Usually only 2 types of people saying this. One, who has nothing but criticizing you because you're reading books. Or 2, the person who is coming from a wealthy family, or maybe not even a wealthy family, but the family sacrificing a lot and supporting him or her and financing their alcohol and drug lifestyle. I am shocked how many university students never even reading books after university, and the worst thing is during the university. I have dozens of roommates, if not hundreds of them, who went to the university, but I never saw any books in their hands. Of course, these people will call me a loser if they see I'm reading books. And there is another fact which terrifies me, and you know what is that? The time is not changing. The younger generation not getting better, not getting smarter. Let me tell you a specific example. A few years ago, I was in Australia. I lived in a similar crowded apartment. Most of my housemates were from West Europe or North America, United States or Canada, and a few Australian. Again, I listened at the same and typical sentences: why I am a loser, because I'm reading books, because blah, 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 blah. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking personally, I'm not repeating my complaints. But what I want you to focus on, what happened after this. I left Australia, and after 5 years, I returned to Australia, to a different city and to a different apartments. And then my new housemates were like 20 years old, which means 5 years ago, they were just 15 years old, teenagers, but now they are adults. And this new generation starting everything all over again, mocking me or anyone who doesn't fit to their group, who doesn't smoke marijuana, who doesn't drink alcohol, who do not going with them to music festivals, and so on, and so on, and so on. And as I mentioned before, 8 of 10 in these houses are like this. So, the old generation used to say that, oh, the younger generations will be better. And after reading books since 20 years, I can verify to you that the younger generation is not getting smarter or more intelligent or more educated. No, actually, they are getting more fool and more stupid. Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? I don't want to get into a deep explanation. In short, when someone overestimating their knowledge of something, or according to another definition, when a completely fool thinks of himself or herself as a genius. I think that nowadays at least 70 or 80% of people from Western society suffering from this. You know what I'm talking about. People read a short news article on Facebook or watching a short YouTube video, and they completely certain about that they are experts and they are pros in that topic. So that's how uneducated people in lower class start to seeing themselves as detectives, doctors, or politicians. During the coronavirus pandemics, everyone was a virologist, and so on and so on. The other thing is that people are full of ego and narcissism, and the social media partly brought this out from them. Do you think that if someone have never read a book on a subject and still consider themselves as an expert, do you really think they need friends who has real knowledge on that subject? If you are aware that person, as I describe myself here now, do you think they need me? They will adore me. Or in this case, they will adore you? No. If they accept you, you will expose them. You will shatter their ego, even if you don't want to, because their knowledge is fake. So they do not need people who has the real knowledge. That's why they only need other fools who believe the same thing about themselves, who believe that they are experts in some topics, why they are not. And the other type of that one who needs more fool than them. You know why? Because if someone is more fool than them, will adore their tiny knowledge. The most of these people need someone who feeding their egos, who feeding their delusions. But one thing they definitely do not need: another person who has the real knowledge. Many people literally hate me in my jobs or in these type of apartments. You know why? Because I expose their false knowledge, even if I don't want to. Don't get me wrong, I am not the person who always wants to be the smartest in the group, or the person who always wants to be on the middle of the group. No, I am not this one. And most of times I let the people speak stupid things because it's not worth it, the argument. But there are situations when I have to speak up. Obvious, stupid and false informations which crossing the line. And that's exactly happened in Australia. So we were in a similar apartment with my housemates, and we were sitting around the table. And we were just talking. And boys, girls, 25 years old, some of them 30 years old. And one of the girl in the group just mentioned that they have to go to the capital in Australia, which is Sydney. And I said nothing, I was just silent. And then the other one as well as said, and after when 4 people just said, yeah, we have to go to the capital, which is Sydney. And I just told them, in a very smiley way, but folks, Sydney is not the capital of Australia. And you should have seen the reaction of this. The alpha, in this case female, the alpha female of the group jumped up and started to screaming. I know the capital of Australia is Sydney. Don't tell me you can't be smarter than a woman. And the worst thing, boys, girls around us, they just give the credit and they just like this, you know. This is very often happens, by the way, and mostly Westerner women doing this and saying this. You can't be smarter than a woman. And I always respond the same sentence. I don't even want to be. I just want to be smarter than a fool. But trust me, it's always just worsening the situation. And look what happened after this. One of the guy on the same afternoon came to me and he said, Richard, I just checked it on my phone. You were right. But listen, you can't be like this. What do you mean? Dude, let the women believe what they want to believe, even if it's a fake information. And two other guys in the room just said, yeah, right. And I asked, guys, why are you doing this? And they responded, if you let them believe their fake information is real, and you let them believe that they are very intelligent and very smart, sooner or later you can have sexual relationship with them. And I just ask, guys, is this really where we are going now? We have to support someone's foolishness because then we hope that we can have at least just a quick sex with them. Folks, is this the only one thing what you can focus on or what? And trust me, not once, not twice, dozens of times happened in different countries, in different languages. And also I get this from boys and girls, they advising me, Richard, this is the reason you are single. This is the reason you don't have girlfriend. Because you always try to be smarter. No, I don't. It's crazy where our world is going to. I don't want to spend so much time on this topic. In the past 20 years, I never had any better job or any better position because of my knowledge or intelligence. Never. You can throw me if you want, as many have done, in the comment section of, for example, in my London video or other videos, or in my private life. A lot of times people asking me, mate, what do you expect? Just because you have read more books and you think you are more intelligent, someone will give you a better job or better position? And yeah, actually, this is what I was expecting. Seriously, in the beginning of my 20s, when I started to read books and I earned some knowledge, I was absolutely certain about that. This will be my ticket out of this lifestyle. Someone, for example, in a job interview, will discover me, will see the potential in me. I also hope that with this knowledge, I will find more educated people, more intelligent people who has connections, who came from wealthy family. And don't get me wrong, I didn't need their money. Okay, I know it sounds selfish, but in the same time, they can earn something with me as well. It's a win-win situation. They can find a loyal, intelligent, and honest worker. For example, if they have a family business, they will say that, okay, Richard, I like you, I know you since years, now we have an available position, you could come and work for us. But this never happened. You can call me a dreamer, daydreamer, or I lived in illusions, or whatever we call, but I seriously believe that this will happen in my life. And now I am beyond 40. Today, most companies or employers do not want intelligent workers. You know why? Because they can't exploit them. They need fools. They need problematic people. I remember the first one. Not the first relationship. Best if I do not remember that. But the first interview like this. So I went to a restaurant. I was already 30 years old or something like that. And you know, I tried to impress the owner. And I had the interview with the owner of the business, the owner of this restaurant. And I tried to impress him. And back then I already worked in the movie sector, movie industry. And I talked to him. And I told him the stories. Yes, I work nearby Hollywood actors. And I practice martial arts. And I have read already over 500 books and so on and so on. And this man was completely shocked. And he said, this was the first time in my life when I heard this answer. Mr. Richard, you are a very honest person and very intelligent person. And I will be honest with you too. Mr. Richard, I need fools. I need low intelligence people. I need drunk people, not during their work. And I asked him why. Because he said, because they will do whatever I say. The intelligent people will questioning me. Look, the same scene happening in the army. Recruiters specifically looking for the low intelligence people to join the army in war situation. Why? Because they will not questioning the decisions. They will not questioning the orders. They will do whatever the command is. And they are the ones going to the front line, to the certain deaths without any question. And the same method they using in any restaurant, hotel, any type of companies, they using this method. They need your intelligence as long as it makes profit to the company. But they don't need your intelligence besides this. Only as long your intelligence makes money to them. And you know what? A few years later, in a different country, in the UK, in London, the same interview happened. And I had this job interview with the manager. And the manager was a very intelligent person. And when he decided he doesn't want to hire me, he said something to me. Mr. Richard, can I give you an advice? Yes. Next time, if you go to a job interview here in the UK, do not mention that how many books you have read, how many skills you have in different sector, for example, martial arts. Just to understand, in a typical job interview, a lot of times they asking about your hobbies and spare time. What do you like to do? And I always tell them, yes, I have read this amount of books, martial arts, and so on and so on. And he told me, here in the UK, we do not need intelligent people, at least in these jobs. And please, this is again a story. It's not just happened one time or two times. It happened dozens of times in different countries, in 3 different languages I speak. They saying that we do not need intelligent people. Or, for example, what about this one? I heard this in Switzerland when I worked there. And not only in Switzerland, but that was the first place where I heard this. The manager said this, we need alcoholic people. We need light drug addict people, which means marijuana addicted. We need people in debt. We need people with problematic background. You know why? Because then you can't just escape like this. For example, if you are in debt, you can't just leave your job like this. You will stay there and do whatever they say because you are in debt. Also, they say, if your alcoholism and drug problems do not affect the job, that's the best employer. And you know why? Once the manager said that, because it doesn't affect your work. But after the work, you start just to drink as many as you can and smoke as many as you can. You will spend all of your money and next day start again. Once the manager used this word, they will be my slaves because they can't escape this lifestyle. And trust me, not just in 1 or 2 countries, not just in 1 or 2 languages happened this, more languages. Several different ethnicities told me this. And how funny, they don't even try to say this because they don't care to say the truth. So technically, I never had any better position or better job because of my knowledge or because I have read this amount of books. Never. And as I mentioned, I used to work in the movie industry where, I went from casting to casting. And let me tell you something about these movie castings. Not the first time happened, 100 people waiting in line outside somewhere. You go in, they're giving you some sentences, and you have to act like an actor, you know. And not the first time happened. The leader of the casting, or director, or producer, or anyone who is the leader of the casting, said that dozens of people coming in and they have no story about themselves. And a lot of them were shocked how many things I have knowledge in, not just the books, martial arts, and so on and so on. And yet, it did not push my career forward. You know what I mean? Someone from the 20s, yeah, I'm going to this university and I'm doing this. And that's it. And I went in and I was 5 minutes just was talking about books, literary contest, photo contest, martial arts, extreme sports, and so on and so on. And also I've done several other unique things that I never heard from anyone in my life. So for example, I had this business card in the movie industry that I am a stuntman, I am a martial arts and self-defense teacher. And when I was in Miami, I was just hanging around in the Miami beach, and when someone just stopped with a Lamborghini or Maserati or very expensive cars, luxury cars, I just approached them on a very humble and modest way, and I told them, sorry sir to disturb you, I'm a stuntman and martial arts teacher, but right now I don't have so much job in the movie industry, so I'm looking for any kind of jobs. And I just left them, my business cards. Countless cards, okay? And guess how many of them called me back or just messaged me? You know the answer. Listen, as I mentioned before, I've worked in over 20 countries, and I searched plus 30 other countries all over the world. I worked in 6 continents, okay? But always in the lowest, worst kind of jobs. Very bad treatment, very low payment, exploitation, and jobs which totally destroying your health and mental condition. So, the last sentence in this topic, I never could have imagined that this intelligence and knowledge will never help me to get a better job. Come on, let me tell you something. There are countless companies in the world. I used to work for several companies like this. In the most of companies, you can find people who are in a very well-paid position at that company and who has no knowledge for that, and persons who technically does nothing in that company. For example, these advisors, or whatever we call them. They have no the education for that, and they do nothing. In every big companies, you can find people who all they just hanging around, smoking cigarette, drinking coffee, and do nothing, and they're working in a really well-paid position. Okay, most of times they are cousins, they are lovers, they are nieces. Somehow they have connection to the management. I understand. But I'm just asking, not you, it's a rhetorical question, why I don't know anyone who giving me a job like this, and I would work there properly. You know what I mean? I would not waste the time. But it never happened in my life. We reached my favorite part. I know many people will troll me because of this topic, but I don't mind. Feel free to troll me in the comment section, but I want to hear intelligent mocks, okay? If you remember my list, this was the third most important thing. When I started to read books, I wanted to be an educated person, and I wanted to earn knowledge, because through this, I wanted to find an intelligent and educated partner. And it's not only about that, I want a woman to adore me, because I wanted to find an intelligent partner, and I wanted to adore her intelligence, adore her knowledge, as well, alongside other things. So it was not a narcissistic wish and, me, you understand? I wanted to give something to my future partner. Think about it. If you do not want to have a fool and stupid partner, how can you expect that you will find an intelligent and educated partner if you are not an intelligent person? So what do you think, how many women I impressed in my life in the last 20 years with my knowledge and with my 1,000 books? If I'm still single and I never had long-term relationship, and I never lived with any woman in my life. So guess. Okay, let's be serious. I never really met any woman through books. What I mean by this, the last time when I met with someone, for example in the library, and we just started the conversation from books, that happened when I was 20 or 22. It was in 2005, by the way, and since then, nothing. Look, the libraries are empty, and those women who are going there, they are not going there to know another man. It happens a very, very rare time. Not even in my workplace, not even in public place, in a park, or in a bus, or in a train, or not even in my shared apartments, where everybody can see clearly I'm always reading books. No, never really happened that. Just because another woman who also likes books, we start a conversation and we're having a friendship, or we're just going to have a date after that. In the last 20 years, it's never happened. I emphasize, I'm talking about the books. To get to know a woman through books. Okay, it's never happened. Which, believe me, it's a complete shock for me. How our world is cold. And because of this, that was the last time, in 2005, when I was 22, 23 years old, that was the last time when any woman, let's say some former classmate from the primary school or from the college, or just anyone from my area, who said that, oh Richard, look, I have a very interesting and very nice cousin, another girl, in her 20s, or in our age, you know what I mean. I have a cousin, I have a niece, I have anybody. She also loves books. She's a very intelligent person. She is very similar than you. Let's hang out together, three of us. We're drinking a tea somewhere in a public place, and we just get to know each other. Huh? This never happened in the last 20 years in Western countries. Let's be more specific. Usually once or twice a year, I meet with a super intelligent and super educated woman, even if she never graduated in the university, but she read a lot of books. So usually once or twice a year. Maybe in the apartments where I'm living, or somewhere on my journey when I'm staying in hotels. These women usually are never single, or if they are, somehow it's by bad luck, they are not really interested in me. And look, very often happens this conversation with them in different languages. Look, I am not the one who bringing up this topic. Usually these women are the ones who bringing up this topic. Richard, you are a very intelligent person. You have a knowledge about a lot of things. I simply can't imagine the reason why are you still single. Look, I am not the one who bringing up this topic, okay? They are the ones. And usually I react always on the same way in the last 20 years. You know, I'm smiling and partly joking. Listen, feel free to introduce me to anyone. If any woman interested in a guy like me. And believe it or not, in the last 20 years, I always get the same response. Always 3 answers for this. 1, sorry Richard, I don't know any single and educated woman around me. And I always ask then, what are we talking about? 2nd, Richard, I don't have so much intelligent female friends. I only have alcoholics, party girl, housemates and colleagues. I am a lonely person. And you know what? I maximally believe this. Because the intelligence makes you lonely. I several times met with intelligent women in different countries, and most of times they are very, very lonely, or they have just very few friends. And the 3rd one is my favorite answers. I have no idea how many times I've heard this. Sorry, Richard, but my single female friends are not the ones who are interested in a guy like you. No offense, none taken. I never take this personally, And I always wish to know why, what kind of men they are interested. Be honest. Countless times I've heard this. Richard, look at yourself. You sleeping on mattresses, in shared rooms. And I always interrupt this conversation because you living in the same room. And I think most of your colleagues or friends living in a similar condition. And the answer, yes, you're right. But we are the women. You are the man. You are the one who have to have house, car, existency, proper job. And this this is what I love about equality and modern world. We are so equal. It's a good thing. But when I have to pay, then we are not equal. When we are start discussing about money, I am the one who have to have. This is the real equality. Okay, let's be serious now. I'm going to tell you 3 different stories. This happened in the dark Eastern Europe, and I was just 30 years old. And this happened in a similar type of apartments, 5-6 people living on a mattress and 20 people in one house. And this is a very common apartment, not just in East Europe. This is common in London, in the United States, or wherever I just worked or just stayed. I stayed in a similar type of apartments because this is the only thing I can afford. So I had a psychiatrist roommate there. She was living on the other side of the room. I was 30 years old and this woman was in similar age, 30 or 32 years old. There were about 15 or 17 people in that house. And technically, the parties last usually from afternoon till next mornings. Every day. Half of the house are university students, the other half are working class people who drinking, smoking, and who knows what else they doing together. Even a lot of times you can see hard drugs in these apartments, like this, like this type of stuff. The other thing is mentionable, very common in these houses. People do not greet each other, especially if you do not drink with them or using drugs with them. But even then, people living in same house and same room and they don't say hi to each other. Sometimes in the same ethnicity. I simply can't imagine how can the people exist like this today. Someone is your roommate and you do not say hi, you don't know the person's name, you're not looking at them. How cold our world is. All right, next to my mattress there were a pile of books, science, philosophy, documentary, history, and so on and so on. And she also has a pile of books next to her mattress in the other side of the room. When she was not at home, I saw her university diploma degree, so she was seriously a psychiatrist. This woman had been there since 2 weeks, and she never regarded me, never say hi, and never even looked at me. I don't know, maybe she thought she's entitled or superior, or I had no idea. I don't even want to know the reasons. I don't care. She was in a completely shock because she couldn't sleep properly in the recent days. Because always party, always noise, people shutting the door, slamming the door. At one point, I wanted to show her my empathy. Because I couldn't sleep either in the previous days. Not properly, I mean. And once I just told her, this is crazy. This is a madhouse. And she looked at me for the first time in the past 2 weeks. She looked at me and she responded, "You are worse than them." And I'm not a person who got angry easily. And I just looked at her and, "Excuse me? Why do you say that?" And she responded, "Because at least these guys enjoying their life on their own primitive way. But you are a messed up person." And why do you say that? And she said, because you don't have friends, you don't have a proper job, you don't have a normal life. And what do you mean? And she explained me, because never no one visiting you. And sometimes you disappearing, sometimes you staying here for days, because you have to understand that sometimes I had job, sometimes I hadn't in the movie industry. But come on, she was in the same situation. Sometimes for days she was staying at home. In the past 2 weeks, nobody visited her. And she blaming me, I'm a messed up person. And you know, when a conversation goes like this, I always respond on the same way. And I told her, I can see you know how to make allies, eh? The only one person in this house who reading books, just like you. I don't use drugs. I don't drink alcohol, while everyone else drinking or using drugs. And in this moment, this woman interrupted me. I don't need allies. I am a strong woman. I don't need anyone. And the way as she finished the sentence, she almost exploded by anger. Here we go again, a delusional Westerner woman who thinks she doesn't need any man or anyone in her life, the typical self-made person. In the past few days, I just noticed that she several times a day takes some pills from a box like this. Huh? This is a vitamin, by the way, here. And after this conversation, she took one again, you know, like this. And when she left the house, I just checked around her stuff, and I found a box like this, which has not a proper sticker. And just some written stuff was it. It was like a sort of veronal sedatives, one of the hardest nerve sedatives in my country. And actually, it's already banned. It was famous until the 1970s or 80s. Some doctors still can get somewhere, or maybe it's not the origin one, it's already mixed with other stuff, but it's a sort of veronal. I've read about it in the past when I was younger. Check on it, what is the veronal, and you will understand what I'm talking about. Folks, just a personal thought on this story. If someone is a psychiatrist and listen at the people's problem, or sometimes the people's madness, for 30 years, for example, and she is in this state, I can understand that, because she heard a lot of things what a civilian never could imagine. But someone in the beginning of her career is in this state, that's a serious problem. How this person wants to help the others who cannot even handle just a situation like this. And all day I just hear this several times and seeing this movement. By the way, she was not the only one psychiatrist housemate in the recent years, and you can imagine the other one too. I don't know what's wrong with this world. But the moral of the story I wanted to tell you, this phenomenon, if there is only 2 persons in the house who are reading books, and there are, for example, 15 people, and one of them is me, and there is another one who reading books, not even drinking alcohol, and so on and so on. And very often happens, these 2 persons do not look each other's company. You understand? That's why the educated people and smart people are completely lost. Because we cannot work together. Okay, second story. I'm telling you honestly, this was one of the craziest story of my life. That's why I'm telling you in this video. The place is similar, shared house, shared room, 15 people in one house, 5 people in one room, in bunk beds. It happened in East Europe. I was 30 years old. And I just got a new roommate, a lesbian woman, who went to the medical university. And she was an extremely intelligent person, extremely educated. And she saw my books, and she asked me, do you reading these books? And you know, there were a few of the books like Desmond Morris or Darwin. And she said she never met anyone who reading this type of books by hobby. And after a few days, we just spent, very lovely afternoons. We had very enjoyable conversations. I was absolutely respectful, and she was also. And I saw that her look changed, the way as she looked at me. And at one point, like someone who losing her mind, she grabbed my arm like this. We were sitting on a terrace, okay, in the capital. And she grabbed my arm like this. Like this. And she said, always in my life, I wanted an educated and intelligent person like you. Richard, why are you not a woman? And she was completely upset. She was not laughing. She was like, in some way, she was terrifying me, you know. And it's, and I just, why are you not a woman? Oh, my sweet dreams. If you don't understand why I'm laughing, I'm not mocking her. No. I was laughing on myself. I haven't had a successful dates with a woman in the previous 6 or 7 years. And in 6-7 years, the only one woman who telling me that you were my dream, always, that's a lesbian woman. This is so surreal. This is, actually this is not a bad luck. This is the upside down 21st century. And people asking me, why don't you want to go back to your own country? Should I say anything else? Why not? Of course, when I ask her, in a very friendly and funny way, listen, if you seriously think this about me, don't you know anyone from the university? Just to have a friendship meeting, 3 of us, one of your classmates or colleagues, because part-time she was in the university and part-time she was already in the hospital. And she said, don't hate me, I'm just quoting what she said. Richard, the university is full of alcoholic, drug addicts, hookers. So very difficult to find there a very good girl. That's what she said. And she said, I know this because I was searching for them. Third story. It was summertime and we are in the same city in East Europe, the capital of my country. I was sitting in a park and reading a book, and as I was sitting there at a tree, I just noticed a very beautiful girl nearby me, and she was sitting at another tree. She was reading a book. I was 30 years old. The girl looked like 25, 27 years old, so not a kid. I just started a conversation with her. Excuse me, how is that book? I always wanted to read that. I had no idea what is that book. And she just lowered the book. She looked at me. She waited a few seconds. Probably she decided I am handsome enough to her or not. And her face completely changed and got arrogant. And she said, why are you talking to me? Who are you anyway? This is a harassment. and she just continued to reading. Okay. A few minutes later, a guy like similar age, 25, 27 years old, came there and sat there on the grass nearby us. And he just rolled a joint and started to smoke it. And the girl, when she smelled the smoke, this was a joint, lowered her book, looked at the guy, said, I know what is this, can I have some? And the guy, because he in that moment smoked one shot, he was like this. With the joint. He did not even say a word. And the girl walked there and they started to smoke together. By the way, the marijuana is illegal in my country. You see, you don't even have to talk to a woman to impress her. You just have to have the right thing in your hand. Money, alcohol, or drug, or anything. And this is so surreal, the movement. I never forget this. And the girl just like someone who was manipulated. She just walked there. They started a conversation. The boy called someone on his phone. 20 minutes later, one boy arrived. The girl also called some of her friends. And after 1 hour, the complete group gathered there. They had alcohol, they had marijuana, and I was just still sitting there and reading my book, or I just tried to read. And you know what? I wanted to go there. No, not fight. I wanted to go there and shake the hand of that guy. You know why? Because he did something what I never did. He met a girl who was reading a book in a public place. And they made a, let's call it friendship or something, They just got to know it. I never could do this in a public place. Not even in my country, not even in any other Western countries. United States, United Kingdom, Australia, and so on and so on. Just to get to know a person, a woman in this case, who reading books, and maybe we have the same interests, we like the similar things. He managed to do this with a gram of marijuana, while me, who was sitting 12 years in the library and have read 1,000 books, I never could manage this in a Western country. And look, these were only 3 stories. I could tell you hundreds of stories from different Western countries like this. And this is a phenomenon. As I mentioned, we're living in the same house, and here is one idiot, it's me, reading books. And there is another one, which is a woman, and she is more happy to make friendship, someone who giving her drugs, alcohol, or anything, than making a friendship with a guy like me. This is, I don't know what to say. Oh, actually, one more bonus story. I already mentioned this story in another video, and this is not about reading books. This is actually about world traveling. A couple of years ago on my journey, I met with a Swiss girl somewhere. And we started a conversation. She was a backpacker, world traveler. I was a backpacker, world traveler. So we talked. And she was asking me where I was heading. I told her. I was asking her too, where she was going. And after 5 minutes conversation, maximum, and she was asking me, where do you live? And I told her, I don't live anywhere. And she asked me, how is it possible? And I told her, because I don't have nothing in my country. I left my country, and nowadays I'm just working seasonally in somewhere in Western countries, collecting some money, and from that money traveling to poor and cheaper countries. Seriously, this whole conversation was like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And she got completely upset. And she started to behave like as if we were friends since 20 years or something. You know what I mean? Of as if she were my girlfriend. And she said, how can you live like this? How can you exist like this? Where do you pay the pension? Where do you pay the health insurance? If anything happens to you, and this, darling, this is not your problem, I told her. And she just get more upset. And I asked her, seriously, this is the most important question what you ask from a man who visited nearly 100 countries? And the reason I'm telling you this, because it's not happened just one time. It happened several times. But in these stories, there is one common thing. You know what is that? Always the Western women doing this. Canadian, American, Briton, French, or Australian, these are mostly who behave like this. And the woman was like 32, 35 years old. Back then it was my age. And not the first time I'm asking a person in a conversation like this, do you want me to marry you, or why are you worrying about my future? Where will I get the pension when I will be old? No, come on, they are not worrying about me. This is the money-centered mentality. When someone just focusing on money every minute, the wild capitalist mentality. And I also ask these persons, when someone starting an argument or something, whatever we call this, isn't there that option when we just, for example, we just hang out together and enjoying the time? Or I'm telling you another alternative, isn't there this option when someone's saying that, okay, Richard, I think you're a very valuable and interesting person. You've read 1,000 books, you traveled 100 countries, I want to keep in touch with you. and saying that, listen, I can ask around my friends and my parents in my own country, and maybe you could come there and work there if you want. Or I can just give you some contact of agencies, or something like, you understand what I mean? Not criticizing the people. And it's so incredible how mainly the Westerners are the ones who love this type of... And not the first time people asked me, boys, girls in my age, ask this question, Richard, what do you expect? Do you think you talk with someone for 5 minutes and the person will say that, in this case a woman, oh Richard, you traveled 100 countries, you've read 1,000 books, I want to go to the bed immediately with you. Is this what you want, Richard? And I always answer, actually it wouldn't be so bad, huh? But at this moment we are not in that chapter, so it can wait. But I hope you get my point. And listen, I'm not only talking about a relationship or impressing a woman. I'm talking about friendship, to join any community. So what about another story? Look at this. I've been in Australia and I visited the library every day for a few hours. And there was a very lovely, very intelligent librarian lady. She was like 65 or nearly 70 years old. And I visited that library for 3 months. And every day we talked minimum 1 hour. And several times she was the one who wanted to talk with me on an absolutely friendly way, okay? There was no misunderstanding or something. She had a family, she had grandchildren already. Just as two intelligent person talking, you know what I mean? And it's so enjoyable, these things, the library always empty. And there is nothing wrong with it, okay? And one thing never will happen, and never happened actually. She never will say that, oh, Richard, I like your company, because she liked me and I liked her as friends, you know what I mean? And she never will say that, listen, on the weekend we will have a family or friends gathering, barbecue party at our house, and you are welcome to join us. And this never happened in United States, Australia, or United Kingdom, or wherever I just talk the local language. And I know what you're going to say, Richard, you're a foreigner. No one will invite you to their house after 3 months of conversation. Yes, I understand this. But what about my country? I spent a total of 10 years in the city library where I lived for 30 years. And 6 or 7 years was what I mentioned before, 8 hours per day, 5 days per week. So all the librarians knew me like a family member. And not just them, old people who were just visitors of the library. I knew them for years, even if we just met once a month or something. And what I want to tell you is that, and it happened in my mother tongue, so no one could say that, oh, you are a foreigner, or you have a weirdo accent, because I have. People don't know you well, or they don't trust you. No, doesn't matter how many years you spend like this. And please, don't get me wrong. I do not call someone to account, okay? I do not questioning or blaming or demanding anything from the people. No, I just demonstrate you how our world works. Just because you read a lot of books, you're intelligent or something, people enjoying your conversation, but they never will open their doors for you. They will never invite you to their friends. So look, just to make friendship via books, through books, the world doesn't work like that anymore. I don't know why our world is like this, but two alcohol drinker or drug user make much easier friendship than two book readers. While we should presume that two intelligent and educated person make easier friendship with each other, and it's not. Definitely not between men and women. And even intelligent and educated women, when they hear that I have no university degree, because I never went to the university, I couldn't afford. Usually I'm not saying this, but this is the truth. They are shocked, and not because of my knowledge. They just simply feel that, I'm on a lower class. Until now, we were on very equal because of our knowledge. But from this moment, when they just realize that I am uneducated, they completely change their behaviors. When I'm recording this video, just a few months ago happened this, in Valencia, Spain. In a public park, I opened a conversation with a woman. Several people were in a park. It was daylight, so it's not like, ooh, nighttime in a dark alley or something. No. And I just opened the conversation in Spanish. Probably I have wide accent in Spanish as well. And she answered to me in Spanish, "This is a harassment, why are you talking to me?" And she left me there. And 1 week later, another one in the same park, when I asked her, "Can I sit here?" She let me to sit there. But in that moment, when I just asked, "How is she? How are you?" immediately she plugged in her headphone. And that was the end of the conversation. And this time I was always asking myself, this is why I learned a language. Okay, I would like to write you here a number. Actually, years. Okay? I spent a total of 3 years in the United Kingdom, and I speak English, as you can hear. This is an important information, because how do you want to know locals if you do not speak the local language? So, I spent 3 years in the United Kingdom without having any date there with a Briton woman, without just hanging out as friends somewhere, drinking a tea or something, or hanging out just with our colleagues, as colleagues sometimes hanging out. For 3 years, I have not been anywhere with a local woman. I had some random conversation, of course, in public places, but it's never turned into friendship or a meeting. Okay, 3 years in the United Kingdom. Same happened in the United States, where I spent 1 year. And I speak Spanish, okay, not on a high level. This is also important information, because in the United States, the second biggest language is the Spanish. So if you've ever been in Miami, sometimes for weeks you will not hear English language. Depends which part you are in Miami. And I spent there 3 months. I spent 3 months in Texas as well, where actually every second person on the street spoke only Spanish. I've never been anywhere with any woman. Friends, housemates, I can say same about Australia, where I spent 6 months. I can say same about Netherlands, where I worked 8 months. Same happened in Norway for 4 months. So the total number of this is I spent at least 6 or 7 years in Western countries, where I speak the local languages. And on the top of that, you can add plus 6 or 7 years from my countries, where from the age of 25 till 31, when I left my country, I had not even a successful date, or just hanging out with a woman, or just getting to know a woman in a public place, and we exchange the phone number, and we just becoming friends, or whatever we call, you know what I mean. This is never happened. And you know why is this happened? I repeat, I don't feel myself as a typical victim, or the classic loser, or something like that. No, because the knowledge is no longer admirable. And just let's be clear about some situations. No, never happened. For example, like this situation. We are sitting at a table, parents, a girl, and mom, dad, this is the guy I was talking about, we met in the library. And for example, the father would say, "Oh, Mr. Richard, I heard so much of you, so you are welcome in my family. We always welcome intelligent people," or something like this. I know it sounds so mockable to you, but tell me how the intelligent people make friendship. How intelligent people finding girlfriend and joining to their families. Never happened, and I could tell you dozens of other different type of stories which never happened in my life. This is another never happened situation. Yeah, someone from the library, in my parents' age, in my grandparents' age, or someone from our community, or from anywhere, who would say that, "Okay, listen, Richard, I have a granddaughter, come and meet her, we can have a lunch, and you two can get to know each other." Never, never. And you know why? Because they never wanted to see this face in their family. Okay, we all know this is not about the face. And there is this word, sapiosexual. Listen, dozens of times I lived or I worked with women who describe themselves with this word. And I think most of times it's just a sort of delusion or something like that. They say what they think about themselves, which is not true. Once a very intelligent woman told me this about one of our housemates who said, I'm a sapiosexual woman. And this intelligent woman said to her, yeah, you are a sapiosexual until you find a rich fool. Yeah, something like this, you know. And you know, all jokes aside, it's so crazy nowadays because I saw several videos when women admitting that their best friend, this chat GDP. I know this is not how we call, I know what is GDP, I'm just mocking this stuff. Their best friend is the chat GDP. And I lived with women in the same house. When she finished her job, she entered to her room. Immediately she switched on the chat GDP and all day were just chatting. And you know, this is so crazy when people prefer robots or whatever we call this, AI, or doesn't matter. They much prefer that than a real conversation with someone in a park. Because they are too arrogant. Because they say, you can't start a conversation with a woman. You can't approach to a woman. Then talk with your robot. Enjoy it. Oh, wait a second. Did I say I never impressed anyone in Western countries? Sorry. I think I lied to you. Are you ready? If this story wasn't enough surreal, I will tell you something more surreal from my life. In my 30s, which means in the last 10-12 years, while I was traveling around the world, at least minimum 40 old homosexual men, over 60, over 70 years old, they approached to me, or we just met in a hotel, or we met in a safari, or in a journey, public transport, or somewhere. They started a conversation, we just having a nice chat, we just went to drink a coffee or a tea or something, and as we should do with Western women, but it never happened, more than 40 men in 12 years. No, this is the point when, you know, I thought 12 years in the library, and this is what I got. Let's put it clear, I never had nothing with them, okay? Immediately when they tried to dating me, I said, okay, goodbye. And you know, the most of them, what they saying, why they like me. Because I always ask them, wow, why do you like me? I'm much younger than you, and so on and so on. And several times they said, because of your knowledge and intelligence and the way as you're thinking about the world. No, seriously, no, I just give up. I don't care this. Seriously, these are my only options. A lesbian girl who's saying that I wish you were a woman, or 70 plus homosexual man. Isn't there any other option? Huh? No, technically no one. Why? Most of the people around me, where I grew up, always said that to reading book, it was just wasting the time. Seriously, I heard this hundreds of times around me. Or my favorite, this is just paper. Paper, as they said, you know. But there was one person in my life. And I'm not talking about my parents. If I would have asked books from my parents, probably they would have given to me something. But I'm not talking about them. But they have their own problems, as you know. So there was only one person who supported me in my life and who gave me sometimes money to buy books. Are you ready for another surreal story? My life is full of surreal stories. This man was a sculptor. He has created countless sculptures. There are even sculptures of his in public places in small villages and some cities in my country. He received one of the government's highest honors for his artistic work, a medal actually. We were friends between the age of 26 and 29 for more than 3 years. He was, by the way, a Holocaust survivor. What you see here in the background are his sculptures. This was made all by him, which he made with his own hand. Back then, every month he gave me 20 euros when I visited him because he said he wanted to help me with this small amount of money. so I could buy books and use it to expand my knowledge. Just so you understand, back then a brand new book cost 5, 6 or even 10 euros, depends on the book. So you figure it out. That was the price of 2 or at most 3 books. I am not showing his face because I don't want to reveal his identity. However, doesn't matter. He had no children or relatives, but he still has many former students. Guess what happened? Are you ready? During those years, I became homeless again while working in the film. It was minus 5 degrees Celsius outside. The apartment you see here was worth 200,000 to 300,000 euros or dollars in the year of 2008. And guess why I told you this? You can hate me or judge me. He had no children or relatives. I was his true friend. I went to the pharmacy to get his medicine, to the post office, or to do his shopping, because he couldn't walk far anymore. But at the same time, yes, I hoped that one day he would give me this apartment. But that wasn't my main goal. One day his neighbor, an elderly lady in her 90s, passed away. Guess what happened? The lady left her apartment to this man. He inherited another apartment. This neighbor's apartment was worth similar price, 200 or 300,000 euros. Do you know how much that was worth 6 or 8 years later? Thanks to the inflation, both of the apartment was worth at least 500,000. Interestingly, this man had countless friends and former students at the universities and all over the country and even abroad. He never helped me find a decent job. Do you know why? Isn't it obvious? I already told you this in this video. Keep them in poverty and then you can control them. This is the rule what he followed too. And one day the chaos broke out. Even when I was homeless, he didn't even offer to let me to stay in one of his apartments. See how ironic life is. An 84-year-old man inherits yet another house, while people like me have nothing. So, and then came the real coming out. After 3 years of friendship, he tried to kiss me. No joke. He showed his true colors. He confessed that he was bisexual. And he asked me to sleep with him. I'd never slept over there before. And I turned him down. He said I could live in one of his house or the apartment if I was willing to make him happy for the rest of his life. I turned him down. For that moment on, he never called me again, and when I called him, he didn't pick up the phone. I almost cried. He left me to rot on the streets in minus Celsius degrees. But this story was a good lesson. Rich people never give anything unless they want something in return. I was already abroad when I looked him up in the news and found the information. He died at the age of 92. I suppose one of his former students, probably another rich person, inherited his apartments. Or maybe worse, the government. And do you know what he said one of the last time when we met? He fell in love with me because of my intelligence. Because of my intelligence. Folks, isn't there any more situation when a girl in my age saying same things? Heterosexual relationship. This is the 21st century. Seriously, these are my only options. A lesbian girl who's saying that I wish you were a woman, or 70 plus homosexual man. Isn't there any other option? Huh? We had actually a group meeting several times in our meetings. As I mentioned before, once or twice a month I visited this old man. And very often some of his friends were there and we had a dinner or lunch together. 4 or 5 men, most of them over 70 or over 80. Even sometimes 1 or 2 old lady. And you know, this happened for 3 years. Okay, it was not just a one-time meeting, it was not just a few times meeting, for 3 years. We had very, very enjoyable dinners together. I was the one who served the food because of my age. I was the only one young there. I was just 26, 27 years old. I filled their cups, so actually I was the cup bearer, you know what I mean? But they did not use me as a servant, I was just the younger, which means I wasn't there, like a butler or something like that. And all of them, they were very, very respectful. There was very famous painter, there was musicians, a music conductor, or university professor. This old man had a lot of friends of his, very intelligent, very educated, artists, and so on and so on. During these 3 years, they knew very well my situation. For example, our house burned down and my father committed suicide, so technically I have nothing in my life. I'm struggling from one bad job to another one, and 2 things never happened with this group. And million times I heard this sentence, "Oh, we are a big family." But yeah, we are a family, but don't touch my granddaughter. You know what I'm going to say. So 2 things never happened. One, they never helped me to find any better job, or just asking around, something like this. And the second one, even this group million times brought up the topic, why are you single, why don't you have a girlfriend, we are so intelligent, you are so handsome, and so on and so on. And they had very big families. Few kids, few granddaughters, some of them already has great-granddaughters, but we are talking about just their granddaughters because they were in my age. One of them said he has 11 or 12 grandchildren, most of them are girls. Never even was just a plan, okay, come with me next time to my house. I know you since 3 years now. Come to my house and meet one of my granddaughters. This whole story is terrifying me because I just needed to realize one of the most important rules in the life. You are on your own. Never no one will help you to find a good job, and never no one will make a connection with their own family. They don't want to see this face in their own family. Doesn't matter how many times they saying that, oh, how you're an intelligent person. Or doesn't matter how many times they saying that, oh, we are a big family, yeah. And come on, it's not about my face. It's not about this. I was just joking when I said this. This is all about the money. They don't want a poor person in their family. Doesn't matter how I am intelligent. Doesn't matter how many books I have read. They don't want to see a person who completely poor. And this has just made me to understand the money is the most important thing. And if you have money, no one cares how you are intelligent or how you are educated. The next sentence is one of the most scandalous sentences what I usually say. And in the life, you need 2 bunch of monies. Okay? One, you are going to use to buy the people around you. And the other one, what you will spend to make them believe that you didn't buy them. You have no idea how many times I heard, you're insane, you're a psychopath, blah, 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 blah. They are just keep repeating this, how you're intelligent, how you should find a wife, blah, 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 blah. But they will always keep the distance. I am 100% sure anyone can say that from their own community. Even you watching this video, you can say minimum 1 person from your own community. A man who is a completely fool but has money, and the people tolerating him. Look, knowledge, education and books only will make you lonely. I spent a significant amount of time with this scene. The library always closing at early afternoon or evening, and especially on Friday, I start to go home and group after group is just passing by me. They going to bars, music festivals, house parties, and me going completely the opposite direction and spending my time alone. In my 20s, the summer was the worst one. Most of my friends or people I knew, they going to music festivals, they going for long-term holiday. Don't ask me how can they afford if they don't have a job and they come from a poor family. People somehow always find a way to make illegal money, or someone just supporting them from their family, sacrificing themselves to support. I spent the Christmas Eve alone, the New Year alone, my birthdays alone, full summers in the library alone. I remember complete summers when every day just 5 or maximum 10 people visited the library. No one was there, literally just me. Okay, look, Christmas Eve or New Year, yes, my mother was there, of course, but she always was working, so did I several times. Now I'm talking about friends or girlfriend. No, I spend the most of Christmas, New Year, birthday alone there. And why? Because the knowledge isolating you. Because I refused to drink massively. I refused to try any kind of drugs. Look at this. I'm in Australia. I'm going to the library, completely empty. Seriously, completely empty. I go to a paint exhibition in the UK, completely empty. I'm going to photo competition in my old country in East Europe, completely empty. Or if not, several times happened, no one is there alone. Most of people has big families, strong community or something, or at least a partner. Several times happened, literally nobody there alone who I could talk with. While music festivals break attendance records year by year, and bars and clubs has record numbers of visitors each year. Reality shows such as Big Brothers have record viewership. These uneducated influencers in the YouTube, in the TikTok or any other social media, they have unimaginable viewing numbers. They are a sort of stars, the modern stars. And yet, they never went to university, they never read any book, they never learned any language, they don't have any skills. And here is the twist. Book readers do not gather together. I just mentioned you several examples. When we are 12 people, 15 people living in the same house, I am the one who reading book and there is another person, and we will not start to hang around. Dozens of times I've seen this phenomenon all over the world. We are living in a house, let's say 10 people. Half of the house are using massively drugs and alcohol, the other one is not. And we, sorry if I call myself as an educated, we do not gather together. We do not take over the house. For example, somehow chasing out, this. But this alcoholic, drug user, party generation several times took over the houses. Next one joined them, another one joined them, the rest of it just left the house because they couldn't tolerate them. And here we are, 10 people in the house are massive drug users and alcoholics. But on the opposite way never will happen. Seriously, I never seen something like that. Or look at the other story. This also happened several times all over the world. Telling someone, you want to come to the library? You want to come to the museum? You want to come, there is an exhibition? Or you want to come with me to the nature, to a park, to a forest, or anywhere? And I see the passivism. And when someone just say, okay folks, let's go and get some drink and get some drugs, and the whole house is just breaking out and together everybody is disappearing. You haven't seen them for maybe one day. Alcohols and drugs mobilize more people than books and culture. And I'm sure you know this in the social media, professor or educated person making a very interesting science video, it has a tiny viewing numbers. And someone just making vomiting or farting or something, and it's 100 times more people watching and liking that video. If you're asking me, have I ever tried to join any cultural clubs or something? Yes, I tried. I have 2 funny stories from the United Kingdom. As usually in my life, both of them are surreal stories. Once, I went to a poetry club in south of England. 6-7 people around, sitting on chairs in a room, and each of us reading one of our favorite poems from a chosen book. On my right side, there is a Rastafari hippie woman, and let's be honest, her hair is a little bit stinky. On my left side, there was a man in his 50s, and this man was in a suit, and I think it hadn't been washed since a while, because I also could smell a little bit stinky. And are you ready? This man has not even shoes and socks. Okay, it was in summertime, but it was a club in the middle of the city, in the downtown. And later I just saw that he's walking outside without shoes and socks. When I looked at the people's face around me, I'm not kidding, we were 6, 7 of us, and I could see clearly every one of them has severe mental illness. I'm telling this not a judgmental way or not a mocking way, I'm just saying it as a fact. There was also a woman in her 60s, and she continuously does this. Like that. And maybe it's a Tourette syndrome, I repeat, I'm not mocking. Maybe it's just a side effect of the massive drug user past. And at one moment, this man asked the Rastafari woman, through me, shall we smoke that joint? And in this moment, I just realized they are here, not because of the poems. They are here only to gather together, and after the event, smoking the joint. That was the main event for them, I guess. 2 years later, a similar surreal thing happened. I went to a writer club in Wales. When I entered the building, I thought I had the wrong place. This was a large room, and probably they using for several different classes, for example, yoga classes or something, and 2 children were rolling on the ground and screaming, and the adults did not say nothing to them. And there were 4 women, and one of them was the leader of the club. When I entered, they noticed me, and probably the leader of the club saw the confusion on my face, and she said, yes, this is the Writers Club, have a seat, and we will start soon. Okay, at least I'm in the right place. And I just sat there for 1 or maximum 2 minutes, because what I heard there was made me to escape to that place. 3 women, 2 children rolling and fighting on the ground, they just played. And I just heard the conversation. And as I heard, all 3 of them are single mothers in their 30s, and 2 of them has their children here. And I just heard the magical sentence. Million times I've heard in my country too, but now from Britons. And I just heard one of them saying this, all men are filthy pigs. Here we go again. I simply can't count how many times I heard this sentence in my country. This is the Writers Club. This is not a Writers Club. This is a man-haters club. Folks, why is it so common phenomenon in several countries? When these type of women going to a bar, find a man, 30 minutes of conversation, when they are drunk enough or they used enough drug, they're going behind the bar and having sex in the alley or in the backseat of the car. Afterwards, the man never will call them back. Then they will blame all the 4 billion men in this planet, and also they pull out the victim's card. How difficult nowadays to be a single mother. Why am I listening this? And in this moment I asked the leader of this club, where is the toilet? And left side was the entrance, and right side was the room, and left side was the entrance, and I just hope that the toilet is not on the right side, it's at the left side, close to the entrance or exit, and then I can just escape as soon as possible. And then she just pointed, yes, that's, okay. So I pretended I'm going to the toilet while I left the building. Writers Club, eh? So let's see, 1,000 books. What has it given to me? 1, I never found better community who accepted me. 2, I never received more respect from the people around me. 3, I never became that type of legend like those old people from my childhood. 4, I never motivated anyone in my life reading books. Seriously, I never heard from anyone this sentence. Richard, you motivated me to reading books. I started reading books when I was young because of you. Or someone saying that, for example, from my family members or neighbors or anyone in my parents' generation, my son or my daughter started reading books because of you. No, this never happened in my life. 5, I never found better job or within the same job a better position just because I was more intelligent and more educated, you know what I mean? And also I never met anyone, bosses or agents or managers, who saw the potential in me and who said that, okay, I'm going to give you a chance, and I put you in a better and well-paid position just for a trial period. Never happened in my life this. 6, and finding a decent woman or just impress women with this knowledge that I had and finding a life partner. Yeah, I think I already talked plenty of enough about this topic, so no more words. No, folks, this is the end of the story. No, seriously, folks, to reading books is an old-fashioned thing. Yeah, only then, if you are a professor, if you are a scientist, if you are something high educated, yes, then the knowledge is admirable. But for a person like me, a working class person, no, it is not. Because the society is full of ego, narcissism, and delusions. The significant number of the people in a Western society are delusionals. 20 years, it's a really long time, and now it's more than 20 years, 22, 23. I forget a lot of things. And you know what? In some way, I hope one day I will forget everything, because the world doesn't need this knowledge anymore. We don't have to have this knowledge anymore. I think I've already forgotten hundreds and hundreds of quotes. Partly because I'm not using them, partly because simple I learned it in my mother tongue, and I did not relearn in English or in other languages. What for? Usually once or twice a year, I have a very deep and very intelligent and lovely conversation with someone. Usually by chance. Other side of the planet, we meet in a hotel, for example, we have a nice conversation in the evening, and we never will see each other again. And let's be honest, when I live in shared houses, 10, 12, 15 people, usually there is always one very intelligent person, and it's me. Okay, I was just joking. There is always someone, besides me. But look what's happening. Not the first time happened this, the person working in different shift, for example, we don't see each other for 1 or 2 weeks and we live in the same room, or at least in the same house. Or the person quitting his job, finishing his university, or just moving to another city, or just moving home back to his parents' house, or my visa is expiring. You understand? Always there are millions of reasons why we cannot build a strong friendship. Otherwise, why do we need knowledge? Tell me. Millions of people living in fake informations. They are delusional about themselves. And they are absolutely fine with it. These trash celebs or these famous influencers, they make unimaginable high money. You can't imagine how much they make. Some of them tens of thousands of dollars or euros per month, and they never read any book, they never went to the university, they don't have any skills or talents. Then why do we need knowledge? There is this girl, maybe on the Instagram, I'm not sure, I'm not on the Instagram, and she has 120 million followers. I think she has the highest number of subscribers in the entire platform. 120 million followers. More than a population in an entire continent. You know how many people living in the Australia and Oceania continent? Approximately 45 million people. So this girl has followers 3 times more than this number. And I watched some of her videos. She can't sing or dance or do anything. She does completely average things, like she pretends she's singing while there is an origin song in the background. And probably she makes tens of thousands of dollars or euros per month. And me, milking cows on a farm, for example, or cleaning toilets, these are the jobs I am doing for 10 euro per hour. And me keep becoming homeless again and again. Today, if you are a fool, you will be the most successful. You will be rich. There never been a period like this in the human history, when people has 0 skills and doing just fool things, and they are the most successful. What is it if not the second dark ages? And yes, saying some positive things, I met with several good people, nice people in the libraries, but these were just casual friendships. A few months or a few years maximum, and we never met again. We never saw each other again. And yes, I found good communities where a person like me is respected. And yes, I found decent girls I was dating with, but only in poor third world countries. And you could ask me, then what is my problem? Why am I crying here? My problem is that these are poor third world countries, which means I have problem to make visa there, which means impossible to make there enough income to live there as a foreigner. I know how is this lifestyle because I lived the same lifestyle in East Europe. When you're working for 100 or 200 euro or dollar per month, and these are the regular salaries there in these poor countries where I found good community, I found good friends, I found a decent girl, yes. So I always have to come back to Western countries and work here. And if I'm not lucky enough to find job, I can find myself on the street very easily, as it happened 1 year ago. And I'm still struggling because of this. When I'm recording this video, just a few months ago, I was still searching food in the trash. 12 years in the library, huh? Was it worth it? And eating the trash from the trash can. If you asked me, would I do it again? Would I read 1000 books again? My short answer is no. No. If I could go back to that age, you know what I mean? If I would wake up tomorrow and I'm again 20 years old, definitely not. I would not read any book. I would intentionally try to make myself as stupid as possible. Yeah, I would be an influencer, I would do foolish things, and one day maybe I would become famous. I'm sorry to disappoint you if you were not expecting this from me. But I am over 40 and I sat in the library 1.5 decades. And I'm still searching the food in the trash can. And people think it's just my choice. Was it worth it? No, absolutely not. But my long answer is that if I had been born in the 1930s or in the 1950s, I think I would read all the same amount of books. But if I had been born after 1980s, or especially after the year 2000, in today's world, no, I would not read a single book in my life. I am totally agree with them. Yes. Look at me, books for the losers. When I look back at how I lived my life in the past 20 years, and I'm not talking about my world travel period. When people watching my world travel videos on my channel, people sometimes commenting, oh, how you are lucky, you were born in the right place at the right time, and they have no idea what they are talking about. I paid an incredible price to my journey. When I look back my life, what I spent in Western countries, how many birthdays, how many Christmas Eves, how many New Years, how many summers I spent alone, the time I spent in loneliness. And I mean, don't complain. When I look at back carefully, I don't think I want another 20 years like this. No. And don't get me wrong, this is not a goodbye message or a final message or something like this. No, not at all. Absolutely not. No, I'm just telling you, in the most calm moment and with no feelings, no, I just simply don't want another 20 years like this. When you're watching this video, I am homeless again since 8 months. And just because right now I am here, it doesn't mean my situation has been solved. And the other thing, what I mentioned to you, I spent a significant time of my life in shared houses and in shared rooms. More than 13 or 15 years. If you never lived in these type of shared houses, you are lucky. Because you don't know what's going on. You have no idea how many mentally disturbed people are out there. And the worst thing, when you're living with them in the same house or even in the same room. And you can't do nothing for months. You have to wait till the end of your contract, and then you move into another house, and if you're lucky enough, it will not continue with other people there. And yes, I know, I rented studio flat, and I was alone there, and no one disturbed me. Yes, and technically I spent all my salary on that one. I woke up 5 o'clock a.m., I went to work, and I arrived home 8 or 9 o'clock p.m. And I just went into the bed, and next day I started all over again. And I had no money, no friends, no life, no partner, nothing. Just working, sleeping, working, sleeping. What kind of life is this? Don't take it as a complaint, because if you think I am complaining, it was completely worthless to watching this video, because this is not about complaining. This is just talking about difficulties as fact. There is this cryogenic method, the freezing people. I don't want to explain what is this, search this word. And there are hundreds of people in this cryogenic method who waiting to wake them up in one day. And I was just thinking, and I'm telling you in a funny way or something, please freeze me and after 500 years wake me up. Maybe there will be a world when people like me will be needed or something like that. Okay, this is just humor, but you know what I mean. And one more last thing, a brief background on how I made this video. I've been recording this video for 12 or 13 hours by now. Everything is here on my computer, and now I am reading it out loud. And I think I will be editing this for at least 20 hours. I waited 2 long years to make this video. 2 years ago, I wrote the text, and now I just added some updates. If you follow my channel, you know I've been struggling a lot to survive for a year, and I've been homeless for 8 months. Don't ask me where I am. There are things I can't or I don't want to talk about at this moment. 2 years, you see? Even a simple thing has a huge price. I don't want to finish this video with negative feelings. However, I know this story is a complete depressing story. I would like to share a few iconic and comedic stories. I would like to end this video with some jokes. So here you can hear some of the most ridiculous reactions and sentences in the past years. This is actually a scandal, which proves we are falling back to the second dark ages. First story. Actually, this is not a funny story, it's more ironical. But it's a typical story which happened several times. Generally, I always try to be modest in my private life and even in my videos. I never tell anyone how many books I have read, how many years I spent just reading books, because I know no one cares this, and otherwise it would be this modest to say it out loud. But sometimes people asking me, and I just want to describe to you a typical conversation. So not the first time happened, in our shared houses or wherever in my journey we meet in a hotel with some people. And not the first time someone asking me in these group meetings around the table, Richard, I see you always reading books. How many books have you read? And I always respond with the same answer. I'm just trying to read as much as I can. And not the first time someone telling me, come on, you know that, please tell us. And some other people also wants to hear it. And then I'm saying the number, which is a big mistake sometimes. Why? Because not the first time happened that someone tried to telling me a much, much higher number. For example, when this conversation happened, I just reached 700 books. I don't know, I was like 33, 34 years old. And this guy who asked me this question, he always was reading fantasy books, which, listen, there is nothing wrong with it. Okay, if he likes it, likes it. I personally don't read fantasy books. And when I just said this number, 700, he immediately responded and tried to outdo my number, and he said, "What? You are in this age and you just read this small amount of books? What did you do in your life? I already passed 1,500 books." And I just said, "Congratulations for you, if you reached this high number in your young age." He was like 25, 27 years old. And already 1,500 books, huh? Amazing. And I asked him, "How do you know this number? Do you write a list or something?" With a lot of pride, he answered, "No, I've read," like when someone not even trying to convince the people around him, no, when a person trying to convince himself. He said, "I know because this is in my mind." And I have a complete list about it. But someone telling me he have read 1,500 books and every one of them he's counting in his mind, he's a genius, if this is true. And otherwise I asked him, "Listen, what is this? Is this a horse race or a competition? What's the point? I'm reading science, I'm reading history, I'm reading documentary books, which is much difficult to read. And I'm again telling you this story, not just because it happened one time in my life, because once a year I always meet at least one of these ego-centered or narcissistic person who absolutely think about himself or herself. I am the best, I always done more than the others." Okay. Second story. Very similar question, but it was few years before. I was just approximately 30 years old. And one of my housemates, a girl, asked me, I see you always reading books. How many books have you read?" And we had the same conversations. "I don't know, I'm just trying to read as much as I can. Not the number is the point," and so on and so on. And, "Oh, please tell me, probably you know that, approximately how many?" And they said, "Listen, more than 500. And one girl from the background heard this conversation and interrupted us. And she said, "500 books? That's nothing. In the last year, I used the same amount of toilet papers." And she thought she's funny, and in some way it is. But I never let to be defeated. So I told her, 500 rolls of toilet papers? Why? In the whole year you had a diarrhea, or why? That's too much. But do you know what? Actually, I like this sentence, but comparing toilet papers to books, that is something. And remember the number, I spent 12 years in the library with 1,000 books. And someone is just comparing the books to toilet papers. Third story. Again, a shared apartment. I have a private room, but we have a common room where we're spending the spare time. And there was a couple around me, my housemates, and I was reading Machiavelli. I hope I don't have to introduce you. Niccolo Machiavelli and his famous book, and the boy, 25, 27 years old, noticed my book, and he was asking his girlfriend, in the same age, "What is Machiavelli? This name is so familiar to me." And she responded to her boyfriend, "Machiavelli? Ah, that's the gay bar on the main road." "What?" And I told her, "No, this is not that Machiavelli." The gay bar on the main road. I don't have so much secrets in my life, not even in my devices. But if someone would find my phone or my laptop, someone would steal, I think they would find on them really strange things, especially in the searching history. So please, if you ever find my phone, do not check my searching history. Not because I am a sick person, because I'm always searching this madness on my devices. And this time I started to search in my device and in the Google map, Machiavelli gay bar, or Machiavelli gay bar main road, or main road Machiavelli. And I just tried several different names and I did not find anything about it. I don't know which dimension these guys living, but some of them already finished the university. They graduated on the university. And Machiavelli, gay bar. But you know what? If one day I will open a gay bar, I will name it Machiavelli. Fourth story. I hope I don't have to introduce you this gentleman. He is one of my heroes from my childhood and still today, and I am sure I am not the only one. And I'm wondering, is there anyone in the Western countries who doesn't know his name, especially in the UK? This story happened in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, in the United Kingdom. And my housemates, two Briton girls, in their early 30s or something like that, you know, typical going for a party, 5 or 6 days per week they are drunk, they spending all of their salary on alcohol and party. They call it social life, but it's massive alcoholism. But let's call it diplomatically social life. And I was reading one of his books, sorry for my pronunciation, David Attenborough. Sorry, I'm sure I can't pronounce properly. In these days, I was reading one of his books, but this book here was published later, okay? I'm just illustrating the story with this one, okay? Otherwise, this is a very good book, I recommend to you. So, when one of this lady noticed that I'm reading one of his book, and the cover was similar, his photo was on the cover, okay? And this lady just noticed that, and she was asking the other one, who is this guy? Because he's so familiar to me. And the other one said that, I think this is the magician dude. And you know, my face is like, magician dude? And please just count the years. If this happened in 2017, and they were approximately 30 years old, that means they were born in the end of the 1980s. Why am I telling you this? Because in the 1990s and early 2000s, there were no child who haven't seen his documentary movies, where these people lived in the past 30 years, or which dimension they are at this moment. The magician dude. And please, this was not a joke, this was not a sarcasm, they were not laughing. Seriously, they tried to figure out who is this dude, the magician dude. Fifth story. So, this is not actually books, but connecting a little bit here. As I describe you, these type of apartments, these shared apartments all over the world, sometimes are very dirty. Doesn't matter it's in Australia, United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, wherever I just lived, the majority do not like to clean dishwashing after themselves, nothing. Seriously, I lived houses where we were like, let's say 12 people, 14 people, and only 1 or 2 of us were the one who were cleaning and dishwashing. And you know, after a point, I always give up, because I just realized that I will not clean up after other people, because if they get used to it, they will not do anything. Why would they do someone else cleaning up instead of them? And the most shameful things, forgive me to say this, but a significant number are women. Okay? I'm talking about generations, millennials in my age, or those who were born in the 1980s, 1990s, or after that. Okay? Lazy. Incredible lazy. And as I said, not the first time, happened in the shared houses, 1 or 2 of us only who cleaning. And this conversation happened also in the UK, in a shared house. I was just cleaning every day the floor, dishwashing after myself. Oh, one more information for you. When I was young, I learned to sewing. Sorry for the pronunciation, maybe I can't pronounce properly. So I was learning to make clothes. Yes, I can make a proper jeans, which is a long job. And back in my early 20s, I was selling jeans, what I made, and this is how I made money. And in this house there was a sewing machine, so I just started to fix my clothes, where it was a little bit damaged, I just fixed it. And my housemates, you know, these typical party people, university students or working class, who every day just rolling the joint, drinking, and they just noticed this. And one day, one girl just asked me, Richard, may I ask you something? Don't hesitate. And she asked me, no jokes, a serious question. Richard, are you homosexual? What? And I just asked, how come? Why do you think this about me? And she said, because we see that you every day cleaning, other people not cleaning in the house, you sewing your clothes, you dishwashing, you're cooking. Oh, my sweet dreams. Because I'm doing this, they presume that I am homosexual. I don't know, folks. Somehow we are going back to the time. Folks, sorry to repeat this information. When I was in my early 20s, I have read several books about household chemicals. If you remember why, because if anything happens to me, or the people around me, or children, or even with my future children, they accidentally drinking bleach or something, then I will know what to do while we're waiting for the ambulance or something. This is how I prepared myself for the real life. And these people around me, 25 or even 30 or 35 years old, when they see I'm cleaning around the house day by day, what they do not do, and they presume that just because of this, I am homosexual. And if you think this is the end of the story, no, there is much deeper intelligence level. And now we are at deeper level than the Mariana Trench. After a few days, I just heard the whispering in the kitchen. When they realized I am not homosexual because I proved them with my words, and I heard something they talking about me. And please, no, they can't talk about me. No, I'm sure they're not talking about me. And they said my name, which is Richard, the guy who is reading books and cleaning every day like a psychopath. And I heard the same girl saying that, I think he's a homophobic guy. And seriously, I do not want to add any personal comment more to this story. No, I will add, listen, what a woman did, what the woman's duty was in the last, for example, 10,000 years. The man is the one who doing, it's me, cleaning the house, fixing clothes. And just because I see this, they presume you are homosexual, but when you prove them you are not, then you are homophobic. And if you think this was the only one story in my life when it happened, no. Few years later, in Miami, where I lived in shared houses, Latin American girls, in Spanish, one of the girls asked me almost the same question. And you know, when she said this, I just told, bendíseme padre, porque es pecado. No, I'm telling you this without a sarcasm or without jokes. No, this is seriously the fall of the modern civilization. Sixth story. This story is actually a tragicomedy. Listen, I really don't want to bring here war topics or politics, but you have to understand why I have to mention this in this story. Okay, again a shared apartment in another country, and there was a 27 years old girl. I don't want to tell her citizenship, I don't want to tell her ethnicity, but you will figure out. And yet I'm afraid they will delete this video because of this story. So my housemate, this 27 years old girl, and just like always I'm reading books, she was there just since a few days, but she started to say horrible things, seriously horrible things. And saying out loud, supporting genocide. It's not just, it can be or it can't be, or maybe I just misunderstood. No, she literally said horrible sentences. I'm just going to quote, okay, this is a direct quote. It's not me who's saying this, because the AI censor maybe can recognize this sentence and think that I am the one who's saying this. No, I am just quoting. She said that, she was talking about themselves, we have to all the babies, old men and everyone else, because they are all terrorists. And after that, she said another sentence, because Bibi is the savior of the West. I'm sure I don't have to introduce you who is Bibi. And when I just heard this sentence, it's like I was not smile or something, I was in shock. And the second shock was that how the house tolerated and said nothing to her. Some of them even chanted with her. And when she noticed that I'm not chanting with her, she just looked at me and, "Are you disagree with this?" And I asked her, "Bibi is the savior of the West?" And then I started to smile. And she just left. And from this moment on, I knew that sooner or later I will be the fascist, the anti-Semite. Listen, doesn't matter which religion or political ideology we are talking about. Doesn't matter far left, far right, or whatever. If someone is extremist, that means the person is not following any logics. The person is just parroting the same words what someone written or someone have told them. And in this case, when I'm not joining the extremists, doesn't matter. I repeat, it doesn't matter it's far right, far left, far liberal, or whatever we call. For me, all of them are the same, but this is just a personal opinion. So if you're not chanting with them, sooner or later they will place you to the opposition side, or more rudely, the enemy's side. They will put you to the enemy's side, they will call you an enemy, because you are not chanting with them. Folks, I simply can't count how many of these extremist people called me fascist, communist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, whatever we call. They always put you on the opposite side, where they can hate you, they can label you, and they can abuse you. So in this moment, I just realized that I have only a few days, and I will be probably called as fascist or anti-Semitic. And it came. It came as always coming, but the way I never could have imagined someone can say a sentence like this. And this is why this story is in this video. And after a few days, I was just reading a book there again. This woman again walking around. She tried to find a way how to insulting me. She said, I always see you reading books just like Adolf Hitler. And I just stopped reading, and I simply couldn't believe that she said this sentence. And she said. And immediately she left, even the house, which means she was coward to stay there and waiting for the argument. And I just simply couldn't place this sentence. What is this? You always reading book like Adolf Hitler? And in the same afternoon, one of our housemates, one guy, gave me the explanation, the background of this story. In the last night, half of the house were watching the television, and there was a movie about Adolf Hitler, and in several different scenes, Adolf Hitler were reading books. So this primitive girl, she couldn't find anything to grab on me. This was the only way what she could connect in her mind. If someone reading a lot of books, that person is like Adolf Hitler. I asked the boys in the house, folks, why are you tolerating this? Why don't you stand up and say something, get out of this house? Why don't we chase out this woman? And they told me, Richard, you see, this is why you don't have girlfriend, this is why you don't have friend, because you're always confronting the people. And the other housemate agree with this guy and saying that, yeah, listen, if I chanting with her, if I pretend that I completely agree with her, she will call me to have party, maybe one day I can have sex with her or with her best friends. And guys, seriously, everything is just about drugs, alcohol and sex. And yes, seriously, everything is about these things. I want to add to this story is that, listen, I don't know if you noticed, but these type of fools, they never struggling to pay the rent. They never have problem to find friends, to dating with boys or girls. They don't have those common struggle in their life what several of us, or a lot of us, like me, we have. Okay, probably because most of these people coming from a very wealthy family, or always there are some people in their background who supporting them, or if they have nothing else choice, they just find a rich boyfriend and that's it. But you understand, I never see these people to be homeless. I never see that these people spending the Christmas or New Year alone or their birthdays. No, they have countless friends. Probably their friends and their family are on the same primitivism level, but it doesn't change the situation. These people have a very easy life. Seventh story. This happened in the United States, again in a shared house, and I was just eating in the kitchen, and two of my housemates, one was an American girl, the other one is a French. They were, I don't know, 27 or 30 years old. They noticed the background photo in my laptop, which I'm going to show you right now. This is the background picture in my laptop since a decade now. The subject stands very close to my heart because this is about the ancient Greece. For those of you who don't know this painting, this is the Athens school. You can see on these paintings several ancient Greece and ancient Roman philosophers and scientists. And also you can find some scientists from the medieval ages. This was painted by Raphael. And this is in the Vatican. I was lucky enough to see this a few years ago. I just needed to wait a decade where finally I could see. I was just sitting there, and one of the girls, when she noticed this photo, she was asking the other one, what is this painting? Because this is very familiar. The other one came here and looked at it closer, and she was just watching for a few seconds, and she said that, you know, this is the painting when the dudes are guzzling. And you know, this is the situation when your brain starts to work in, what does she want to say? The dudes are guzzling. What is that painting? And when it's coming to your mind and it's, no, please, don't say this. Don't say that picture. Folks, she was talking about this picture. Look, this is one of the most famous, one of the most popular painting in the human history. Maybe this is the most famous painting in the human history. And she doesn't even know the name of the picture, and she mistook this picture with the other one. I'm showing you both of them right now. She was talking about the Last Supper. And I told her, listen, but don't you see, in my photos they are walking, they are not eating. And she said, yes, because they are going to guzzle. This is not a comic book. This is completely two different paintings about different subjects. And the woman in her 30s in the Western countries, she's saying that the dudes are guzzling. Folks, when this conversation happened, in this period, I was reading a book from Edward Teller about the hydrogen bomb and the structure of the nuclear reactors. And people around me speaking like this, the dudes are guzzling. And you know, there are situations when you continuing a conversation with a fool because you just want to see where this conversation ending, where is this conversation goes. And I asked her, if you know this very well, who painted this? And she said, immediately, without any hesitation, this was painted by Picasso. So the dude's guzzling was painted by Picasso. Okay, now I know. And I told her, I did not even know. And she said, you see, you're always reading books and you don't know nothing. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that after a few days I heard that they were whispering about me, how I am a loser, because I don't have money, because I don't have nothing. And in my age, we were almost in the same age, I should have already have house and car and blah, 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 blah. Why? They don't have either. Eighth story, the last one. Again, Westerner ladies, my housemates, and I just heard this conversation while I was eating my soup. One of them saying that, she said, yesterday I watched a video about this Freddy Krueger effect. You know, I was just like this. And again, please please don't say this is that. No, don't say it to me. And I was just waiting to finishing the story. And the other one asked her, what is the Freddy Krueger effect? She said, when someone overestimating his knowledge about something, a complete fool who thinks he's a professor. No. Seriously, I suppose that's what she wants to say, and exactly this is what she said. You remember, I already told you this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, when someone, maybe educated person, who overestimating his knowledge about a topic, or a complete fool who thinks he's a genius in some topics. And she just continued this explanation. When someone thinking that he's a fool, but he completely thinks he's a smart person, and the other asks her, but we are not like this, right? And the alpha female convinced her, the other one, no, we are not like this, but the most of people in this house like this. So, the Freddy Krueger effect. Folks, sorry to repeat it one more last time, because this is the end of the video. I spent 12 years to read 1,000 books. And listen, I could tell you hundreds of stories. I'm actually planning to write a dictionary about these stories, about these words, the Freddy Krueger effect, the dudes are goslings, and I will publish it, dictionary for fools. And trust me, these people maximally believe that. They are smart and they are educated. These people are not struggling to paying the rent. These people are not struggling to find friends, or these people are not lonely. And here is the main thing, these people are not poor. These people are voting. These people are raising children, and they passing this foolishness to their children. And don't get me wrong, I never want anything from these type of people, not even friendship, not even relationship. But if I would like to date one of these people, their family immediately will rejecting me, and they would say, oh, you are uneducated, you are poor, blah, 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 blah. What I really don't understand, how do these people survive this long? How is it possible they do not causing a disaster day by day around themselves? How do these people get old? This is the thing I simply can't understand in my brain. And I repeat, I spent months in the street as a homeless in different countries. And I never met with this type of people on the street. You never will find this type of people on the street. And they're working sometimes in positions where they have responsible for human lives. I just simply can't understand how is this possible. How is these people graduating in universities? What kind of universities they graduating? Probably their certificates never will worth anything. Okay, so summary. Machiavelli is a gay bar on the main street. He is a magician dude. The painting of the Athens school in the Vatican is the dudes are guzzling. If you are cleaning your house, fixing your clothes, and dishwashing after yourself day by day, that means probably you are a homosexual. But if they figure out you are not, then you are homophobic, obviously. And if you're reading a lot of books, then you are just like Adolf Hitler. Isn't it obvious? I am a loser. That's what they say. If not a loser, then I am a Nazi. If not a Nazi, I am a homophobic or homosexual. So whatever. You understand? These people always try to labeling you as their enemies because they searching enemies. They searching the confrontation. They want to be offended. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed in some way. So, and I am just going to read one of the loser books, or maybe one book from the magician dude. Welcome to the second dark ages. Yeah.